Alright, so let's discuss the Cyberpunk theme that a lot of people are talking about for the next Need for Speed. Personally, I think it wouldn't be a terrible idea, but it wouldn't be a great idea either, just due to the fact that it doesn't really fit Need for Speed in my opinion. Need for Speed has always been somewhat grounded in reality when it came to consistent themes and gameplay settings, either with them being in a modern city like Need for Speed 2015, or the games taking place in a modern mountain area like Hot Pursuit. I think that having the game take place in an area that actually exists in real life helps the players build a stronger bond to the game when racing, because it gives off the impression that things like racing down a highway at 150 miles per hour or around a bend on a mountain can actually happen in real life. Having a futuristic cyberpunk sort of vibe, which isn't available to experience in real life, wouldn't hit as hard as Need for Speed normally does, is what I'm getting at. Especially if you consider how the public took the release of Unbound, which was the most cartoony and animated we have ever gotten in the entire franchise. They tried a Spider-Verse sort of thing and people hated it. In fact, it was received so poorly that I would be very surprised if the dev team and EA themselves try anything else out of bounds for quite a while. The reason I say this is look at the trend of games coming out with something new and then those said games not doing well. Every single time the company resorts back to what worked before they changed. Look at Call of Duty with the futuristic jetpacks and themes. The game started not to do well and they went right back to the basics. Look at Battlefield 2042. It didn't do well, amongst other reasons, and now EA has claimed that this new Battlefield game is going back to the basics. It's a tale as old as time. And due to what happened with Unbound, that may have lowered the chances of a significant change happening in the franchise. But going back to the topic at hand, let's continue talking about theme changes. For those who may be thinking about why having Cyberpunk is any different from people asking for a different country entirely, well, having a time period change is different than having the modern setting change from state to state or country to country, because even though Japan does not look like the United States, and the United States does not look like Mexico, they all take place within the current era that humans are in, so the players are still able to build a connection with the current time period. A change of scenery would be great for the next Need for Speed game. That's not what my argument is really targeting, because realistically, how many times are these games going to take place in an area that has a forest on one side of the map, a large city in the middle of the map, and a beach in one corner of the map? That happens every game. However, changing to Cyberpunk would be changing the scenery and be changing the entire theme of the next game, which would completely sever it from the other games in the franchise. The best way I could describe it is when Need for Speed tried to do a realistic sim type of game, even though they are known for arcade racing and crazy police chases. But this would still even be more of a change, because even though the other games were sim-like, they still took place in reality and in a time period where things like that actually happen in real life daily. However, once again, Cyberpunk I feel is just doing too much too quickly. So yes, sometimes things do need to be switched up, but I don't think that it would be the best direction. And you got to think about it this way too, right? How would the cars work? If it's the future, we won't be seeing cars from 2025 or even the next half decade in the lineup, and who knows what those cars would even look like. Need for Speed prioritizes having real brands in their games, unlike games like GTA and companies like Rockstar. And this matters because sure, car companies may have futuristic designs for cars, but they don't for every car. And the ones that they do are considered concepts, which companies may not want to release to the public via a video game. Or if they do it, it will be very expensive to license. Concept cars in Need for Speed is not a foreign concept and has been done a few times before, but for every single car in the game, that is unheard of. EA doesn't like to give the devs extra time or extra money, and what do you think the devs need more of in order to make this a success? Both. More time to redesign every single car that will be in the game so that it fits with the Cyberpunk theme, and more money to fund the designs and try to get a few concept cars in the game, if they even go down that route. Does this sound realistic to you guys? I mean, it's EA, right? Plus, keep in mind that one of the things that Need for Speed has going for it is that you can use real life brands and basically do whatever you want to with them, which enables players to act out fantasies they may have. Chances are that majority of players who race in Need for Speed cannot comfortably afford a Lamborghini SVJ or a Bugatti, so what do? They buy them in the game and take them on police chases or go jumping off the side of a mountain, things that they would normally never be able to do in real life. Those same actions can be done without real branded cars, but ask yourself, would it honestly hit the same? When you see those off-brand futuristic cars in your garage, how many of you guys are going to be wishing that the front had a Ferrari symbol on it, or that the car you're driving actually had a name that people drive and race in real life? And it doesn't even have to be the highest end cars either that rich people have sitting in their garages. Maybe a younger player has just seen a bright new red dark horse zooming by on the highway while they're in the backseat of their mom's minivan. Now, if he were to get that car within the game, he could have a piece of what it would be like to own one of those cars and do whatever he wants with it. Without real cars, this would be taking away a bunch of Need for Speed's identity. Some of you all may be asking, okay, but what about video games who are Cyberpunk themed but have cars in them? To that I say, a lot of those games are either the first in their series or have been doing a futuristic theme since the beginning, since they came out. So their main audience is not experiencing a huge change like how it would be for the Need for Speed community. For example, Cyberpunk 2077, which probably came to a lot of your guys' minds when this topic was brought up. It's a standalone game and the first in its series. People are able to adapt to its setting, its time period, all of that sort of stuff. But it would be different if that were, say, maybe the 4th or 5th game in the series and they just went from a modern era game to insane futuristic things. That's what it would be like for Need for Speed, in my opinion. Huge game franchises have tried this thing like that before, like Far Cry, but once again, it's a bit different with story-based games compared to arcade racers. This also goes into my smaller point that just because it worked out for one franchise does not necessarily mean it will work out for another one. Let's not forget that the Need for Speed community is one of the most backwards and indecisive communities out here that never knows what it wants. One side wants the older games back, one side wants sim style back, one side wants Break the Drift, another side doesn't, another side wants a series to remaster everything. It's ridiculous. Bringing it back to Unbound once again, the community destroyed that game, and for what? Because characters and tire smoke were animated while everything else in the game wasn't? Sure, there may be a cult following of Cyberpunk for Need for Speed, but outside of that, would there even be real support for this change? That's what people need to keep in mind. We don't want the series to go down under even more than it already is. The franchise has already been put on a huge hiatus, and imagine if it were to come back just for the next game to do terrible due to Cyberpunk themes. But everything is not all bad. One great thing that could come from this is the customization due to the cars not being real and not being tied down to any contract or body kit laws. The customization that a Cyberpunk themed game could have would easily be the best the Need for Speed series has ever been and players have ever seen. No money in contracts and licensing, and no companies telling EA that their body kits or cars can't be destroyed. This would unlock a new level of freedom that we probably thought didn't even exist in the game. The only thing that would stop greatness like this would be if EA still wanted to rush the game and drop it unfinished. However, due to the money being saved on the front end with no licensing, I do think it would be possible for EA to extend leadway to the dev team so that the customization could be done correctly on the back end. We could have the craziest kits ever, and the way that the cars could look would be only up to the imagination, because remember, this is way into the future, so nobody can say what the cars can or cannot look like. This creative freedom would push Need for Speed into something amazing, and I doubt that there would be a lot of people in the community that would get mad at the abundance of customization options. So everything would not be a terrible thing, but I really don't think Need for Speed is in the right place for something like this, at least right now, where there would be no build up for it. Let me know down in the comments how you guys feel, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.